Hello fellow sign lovers. Now, most of you are familiar with the three categories. If you're not, you can watch a video over here. But you might not know that these three categories can degenerate into the 6 universal predicaments. Now, the 6 predicaments gives us a more detailed picture of the way how these three categories enter our minds. They help us to better understand our place in the universe, ourselves, and everything. What I found especially fruitful is that through these 6 universal predicaments we get 3 tensions. Just to give you a sneak peek of the 3 tensions, there's the tensions between chaos and order, individuality and continuity or holicity, and tension between quality or originality and particularity. Now, the whole thing with this Persian way of thinking or Persian worldview is that it's triadic in nature. And it is very, very hard to think triadically. It's something that I struggle with all the time. I'm sure all of you have problems with it because we are just so used to dualistic thinking. We always think about opposites. It's black or white. It's either everything or nothing at all. It's individual and then the group or society. It's nature and then there's culture. There is biology and then there is this human culture. And everything is just put into these 2 separate containers. It is the modern way of thinking, basically. We have thought dualistically for hundreds of years and it's very hard to break old habits. But these 6 predicaments are a great tool for that because these 3 tensions are tensions between opposites and they are, in that sense, dyadic things. So what this is, it is a dyadic way to think triadically. I will divide this exploration into 2 videos. In this first video, we're gonna simply concentrate on the logic itself, how these degenerations work. And in the second video, we are gonna then take a more closer look on these predicaments and especially on the tensions and really, explore what they mean. So we know, or we don't know, but this is a hypothesis. We must be fallibilistic. That means that we must at every moment, this is a side note, but at every moment we must remember that everything we believe could be wrong. So this is not the truth, but a hypothesis. Hypothetically, our whole cosmos is triadic in nature, and every moment, event, process, experience, everything manifests all of these 3 categories, always. But logically, we can put these categories to a hierarchical relationship to one another. We can express this hierarchy by saying that firstness determines secondness, which determines thirdness. We can say this in another way. We could say that secondness always involves an element of firstness, and thirdness always involves an element of secondness and firstness. This may sound a bit confusing, so let's try to investigate this by linking this to our experience. To do this, we will use a method developed by Peirce called Prescission. Prescission is a method to separate concepts and ideas from one another and to find hierarchical relationships of dependence among them. In particular, prescission is applied in those cases in which 2 objects cannot be imagined separately. That is, we cannot form a mental image of one object without also forming the image of the second, but we can nonetheless suppose one without the other. That is, we can think of it as logically or metaphysically possible without the other. Now, next, with the help of this method, we are going to separate firstness from secondness and then firstness and secondness from thirdness. Here's a thing. It forcefully enters your consciousness and demands your attention. You cannot wish it away as it has brute force in itself. You are experiencing the element of secondness, an individual reaction that manifests with force. However, as we have already many times noted, this particular instance, as every other instance, necessarily embodies some qualities. In this case, those qualities are, for example, a certain color, or the quality of wetness, or the sound quality which the droplet makes when it hits the ground. As qualities, these are of course elements of firstness. Now we notice that we can contemplate these qualities, the color, the sound, or the quality of wetness, regardless of that individual instantiation. That means that firstness is logically primary to secondness, or that we can prescind firstness from secondness. Furthermore, we see how secondness necessarily involves an element of firstness in it. But now we come to the concept of degeneration. This abstracted quality from some individual instance is not, in a strict sense, pure firstness, but firstness of secondness. Now, how that differs from pure firstness? Pure firstness is completely independent, pure abstract possibility, whereas the firstness of secondness is the quality that is embodied in some instance of secondness. It is the quality or qualities that are embodied in this particular instance, and in this case, this particular water droplet. In pure firstness, we would be contemplating the color in itself, completely detached from any embodiment. But in firstness of secondness, we are contemplating the color as it is instantiated in some particular instance. In other words, in firstness of secondness, we contemplate some quality that is already embodied in something. So until now, everything we have experienced is just irrational reactions and the qualities that the reactions have embodied. Now we are interested in inquiring further what those individual reactions mean. So in other words, we're interested in what kind of habits or laws govern those individual instances that we are experiencing. Now after a brief inquiry, we learn that the sound is coming from a leaking faucet. In other words, leaking faucets have a habit of emitting these kinds of sounds. Now, looking at the relations between the categories, we can present secondness and firstness from this thirdness, as we already did. We explored the nature of that one irrational reaction and the qualities it had without paying any attention to the habits that govern those instances. So there is no need to go through that logic here once more. If you're interested on that, you can watch this video. Now we are interested in the degenerations of the categories, and thirdness can have not one but two degenerations. To find these degenerations, we approach this experience from the point of view of thirdness. Now, we know that this sound is coming from a leaking faucet. That's the habit that governs these instances. And from this point of view, we can see those individual droplets as instances of that habit. As pure secondness, they would be completely irrational individual reactions without any explanation, but as secondness of thirdness, they would be instances of some law or habit. So we would say that these sounds or these water droplets are instances of the habit that leaking faucet emits these kinds of sounds. Now, the next question is how we are able to recognize these individual water droplets as instances of some larger habit or law. We could put this in another way: what it is that these individual water droplets embody in order that we recognize them as instances of some habit. This question leads us to firstness of thirdness. What these water droplets or the sounds are embodying is not quality per se, but a pattern or a quality of pattern. What makes us think about a leaking faucet is not so much the individual droplet or the sound, but the patterns of those sounds, this constant dripping noise that has a certain rhythm in it. Now notice how this pattern is something that we immediately feel. We feel the rhythm, so to say. So firstness of thirdness is the generality that is present in every habit, law or rule, but as itself it's still very vague and not actually embodied. Firstness of thirdness is the vague form that is embodied in some instances of some general habit, rule or law. Firstness of thirdness is very hard concept to wrap your head around, so we leave it there and continue to investigate its meaning in the next video. We could present this logical relation with the help of a diagram. Let us depict firstness as a point which has only one leg, secondness as a point with two legs, and thirdness as a point with three legs. Now we can present firstness from secondness because the point with one leg is necessarily part of the point with two legs. This abstracted point we can call the firstness of secondness. It is the element of firstness that is necessarily involved in secondness. Now let's take a look at thirdness. We notice how we can present both secondness and firstness from it. We will call these the secondness of thirdness and the firstness of thirdness, which are the necessary elements of secondness and firstness that are involved in thirdness. So you notice how secondness can degenerate once to firstness and thirdness can degenerate twice, first to secondness and then to firstness. We will use apostrophes to show the number of degenerations. Next, we can form a triangle where these predicaments are presented. Semiosis develops from firstness to secondness to thirdness. That is from potentialities to actualities to habits. Now degeneration happens to the opposite direction. Firstness of secondness degenerates towards firstness, secondness of thirdness degenerates towards secondness, and firstness of thirdness degenerates towards firstness. Now, finally, we are ready to take a look on the three tensions. The tensions form between the opposite predicaments. That means that we have three tensions between firstness and the secondness of thirdness, firstness of secondness and thirdness, and secondness and firstness of thirdness. What does this mean? What is the meaning of these tensions? That is something for the next video. So that's the logic. It's quite simple, but it requires some thought and processing, but I'm sure you can manage it. So in the next video, which is going to be, I guess, more interesting video than this, we're going to really explore the meaning of these tensions and these 6 universal predicaments. So until then, good sign hunting and stay triadic.